Hi, I'm Connie Dines. After taking the module test on conflict styles, I wondered how attachment styles differ from country to country. Were they different in an independent society as opposed to a communal society? I decided to dig in and explore that topic. So, the definition by the APA of attachment style is the characteristic way people relate to another in the context of intimate relationships, which is heavily influenced by self-worth and interpersonal trust. Well, when I thought about that and thought about the question, what's your style, which kicked off the attachment theory quiz, it occurred to me that I had a wonderful culturally diverse class and I could explore some of their responses to the same questions. It turns out that many of them do feel that their attachment style is dictated by their own community culture, even though it's enclosed in the larger Western culture. So I thought, well, does the Western independent society cultural bias of a secure attachment translate globally? Not so sure. The problem has with built-in bias of the original studies, according to Heinrich Heine and Nazoyan, claim behavioral scientists routinely publish broad claims about human psychology and behavior in the world's top journals based on samples drawn entirely from Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, also known as weird, societies. And this group is the smallest group on the planet. So there's a problem. Further, it's ethnocentric to state that the preferred attachment style of secure attachment is the most desired. In Japan, several studies have been done by Takahashi and Behrens, who noted that several of the attachment studies found that Japanese children spend so much time with their mothers that when she left the room, they were more in shock than they were insecure because they were rarely out of her sight. The other problem, according to Behrens, was that when the child showed any signs of distress, their mother immediately swooped them up and calmed them. So it was very difficult for the researchers to determine if the child had an insecure attachment style or not. One of the other fallacies was discovered by Kendra Cherry, who determined that, came to the conclusion that a lot of the studies regarding attachment styles with Asian American students had been misdiagnosed due to a higher social anxiety displayed by those students, due mostly to the fact that they had a very difficult time interpreting and reading facial expressions. A psychologist named Paul Ekman has done a tremendous number of studies and published an article in 2016 called What Scientists Who Study Emotion Agree About in Perspectives on Psychological Science. He concluded that there are only 7 facial expressions that are universally recognized, and those 7 are happiness, surprise, sadness, fright, disgust, contempt, and anger. Once I was armed with this information, I realized that perhaps there needed to be further studies into the multicultural side, but there's a lot of nuance in those studies as well. One of the most interesting researchers on this topic has been conducted in the US, looking at subcultures within the broader culture of the independent Western culture. And it turns out that lower socioeconomic status, children born in poverty, or children born in high-stress environments were likely to be more insecurely attached. What they deduced after these studies is that there was actually a lot more variation within a culture than there is between the cultures. I found that quite interesting. and would love to see more research in that area. The question then comes up with whether your attachment style that's developed as a young child, 0 to 2, lasts for your entire life, or if it can change. Luckily, though one camp believes that it's set in stone, there's a fairly large developing body of evidence that has discovered that your attachment style can change over your lifetime. I was thinking about, well, how does this affect students, or how could we help students knowing this information? And one way that that could be accomplished is if students had a liaison or an advisor who would identify for them these attachment styles, especially when they come from communal countries or communal societies, even within our society, and help them learn adaptive strategies so that they can communicate better and more comfortably with the larger peer group at the university. This would also help in the workplace later on, and perhaps in intimate relationships and friendships. So it seems like the cultural interest in attachment styles is salient in our environment of multicultural living, but needs more research before we can definitively determine that what the best attachment style might be. Thank you so much.